Welcome to the Purity for Life podcast, episode 156, Discovering the Disconnections in Your Life. For more information on this podcast and other great content, visit purityforlife.me. Hey everyone, my name is Frank Honus, and I want to welcome you to the Purity for Life podcast. Hope you're having a great week, great weekend, and wherever you are at, whatever part of the country or the world you live in, that it is beautiful. We are in the fall season. The fall is here in Delaware, and it's just beautiful. I love this 60-degree weather that we're having in the 60s, and it's been a little warm this week, but I love the cool temperatures. They're back, and it's feeling like fall finally. So, but I hope you're doing well, and it's also beautiful where you're at. So this week on the podcast, I want to talk about discovering the disconnections in your life. Discovering the disconnections in your life. Two of the most major disconnections that can quickly sneak into your life, into our lives if we're not careful, is our relationship with God and our relationship with our spouse. So being disconnected from our relationship with God and being disconnected from our relationship with our spouse, our husband or wife. I happen to believe that those are two of the most major disconnections that can occur if we're not careful. And I use that word fully. I use that word disconnection in its most basic sense, that we can literally become separated, maybe not in terms of divorce or separation like that, but day by day, week by week, if we're not careful, if we are not giving the time and energy, as we'll talk about here in a second, we can become parted and separated and disjoined from those people that matter most to us, namely, again, our relationship with Jesus and our relationship with our spouse. I think those are two of the greatest disconnections we can have in our lives as men and women in recovery from an addiction, whether it's pornography or whatever it might be, on your recovery journey, on your purity journey. So why does this matter? Maybe this just seems sort of kind of lofty and out there. So why does it matter? And really, how does it relate? How does it affect our recovery and our purity journey? Because I really think it does. And here's the basic reason. If we become disconnected with God and our spouse, so one or the other, or both, we're not making an effort to know the other person or to be known. So let me float that your way one more time. If we become disconnected with God and or our spouse, we're not making an effort to know the other person and be known by the other person. So what begins to happen is this can sort of quickly lead to isolation. And we know, you and I know as former addicts, or if you're struggling even right now in your life with an addiction, that we love isolation. I remember, that isolation was my middle name when I was struggling. I cut myself off from people. I didn't attempt to know people, and I didn't allow people to know me. And, maybe this doesn't happen quickly in your life, but even isolating, so even if you don't completely cut yourself off, if we're not careful through the routines of life, through the daily kind of mundane, sometimes feeling the feeling of mundane, work, and just kind of day in and day out, we can begin isolating our feelings. We can begin isolating our thoughts, our affection. We can begin isolating our attention for the other person, our affection for the other person, our attitudes. And so it just starts very, very small, and it can grow without us, really paying attention or maybe even noticing. But we become distracted by so many things. Our focus just gets off of what's most important and who's most important in our lives. So discovering the disconnections in your life is this week's topic. And so recently I recorded some thoughts about disconnection while I was driving. And don't worry, I have an Apple Watch, and I have an app on there that lets me record while I have two hands on the steering wheel and my eyes are on the road. So wasn't, using my phone or anything like that. So, but I began thinking about this idea of disconnection, namely based on an experience that I was having in my own life recently with my wife, Tracy. I wanted to share some thoughts that I had about disconnection and how easy, the disconnection can occur in our lives between us and God, us and your relationship with Jesus, and our relationship with our spouse. So I want to go ahead and actually insert that into the podcast. So for audio, you'll hear that, and video, you'll see and hear it. These thoughts, and this was just a week or two ago that I shared this. That I recorded this because I knew I wanted to use it for something, and this idea, this topic of disconnection kept coming back to me, and I wanted to use this for this week. So think about some of these thoughts, kind of diving in further about what disconnection can do in our lives, and please, I hope I hope these ramblings of mine are a little bit significant for you, and will encourage you about disconnection. So we'll be right back after this, kind of some of these thoughts, and with some more comments and some more thoughts on disconnection. Sometimes disconnection can sneak in so subtly in your life. I think sometimes within your family, maybe it's within your marriage, or even your relationship with God. It happens sometimes before we even know it, and so frequently before we even realize we're totally disconnected from the other person or from Jesus. Maybe it's due to stress or busyness or too much activity. Maybe if you're a parent, it's been a really long week, a really hard week with your kids, or you're just dealing with behavioral issues, or there's just going to be so many things that sneak in our lives and cause disconnection, and really sometimes it's external things, but a lot of times I think it's internal, and I think it's also by our own choices that we make. I was reminded this week that by my wife, thankfully, that it takes effort, and it takes intentionality, and it takes leaning in to your marriage and spending time talking, sharing, touching, affection, verbal communication, encouragement, throughout your week, throughout the mundane, the times, the moments that feel mundane, or feel like they go on forever, and just the same old kind of feeling. So that applies to all the above, to our friendships, to our relationships with family, certainly our marriages, but also to our relationship with God. I think that we have to be intentional. We have to lean in. We have to make the effort to spend time with the other person, to talk, to share, to open up, even when we don't feel like it. I need to ask myself every day: am I willing today to spend, to give my relationship with Jesus effort, my marriage effort? Am I giving it healthy effort? Am I trying? Am I communicating? Am I being open and honest? Am I encouraging? It's not just for me, but it's for the other person. And sometimes we just kind of set things on autopilot, and just sort of coast throughout the week and throughout our relationships and our commitments, and then the other person, whether that's our spouse, or maybe it's just your relationship with the Lord, that just feels stale or just feels lifeless. I just would question, it's a question I'm asking myself: what sort of effort are you putting into your relationship? Are you spending time? Like I said, are you spending time? Are you communicating? And if you're not, what's going on? Why aren't you doing those things? What is it that is more important to you than those who are the most important in your life? And so, sometimes the good things get in the way. It's not even just the bad things. It's not even just the negative things or sin or anything like that. Sometimes it can be good things that we just get too much of and we need to scale back on. So, and we may not even realize it. So just ask yourself today, as I'm asking myself this week and the last day or so, since, I was kind of reminded, lovingly, of course, by Tracy, what causes disconnection in your life towards other people, towards family members, towards your spouse, or towards Jesus? It's a good question to think about, because, like I said, before we know it, sometimes before the blink of an eye, that we are totally separated and from the people that we love the most and the things that matter most in life. All right, we're back, and I hope those were encouraging thoughts to you. I hope those were challenging thoughts, because again, I speak those things, I share those things out of my own experience with, having, even the last 7 years, kind of going through days or, a string of days feeling disconnected, kind of disconnection building between my wife and I, whether that's because, just of just life or stress or jobs or, kids or whatever it might be. I mean, you think about it, you name it, and anything can cause us to sort of become disconnected if we're not careful. Even good things, even, our work or, things that we might veg out on a little bit. We just got to be so careful to really invest the time and energy into the people that matter most in our lives. And again, if you are a believer, if you're a believer, that is number one, your relationship with God, and then if you're married too, that's secondly, your relationship with your spouse. So I hope those were good thoughts to you. I wanted to share as sort of the practical kind of end of this week, of some great advice that I recently read from Ryan and Selena Frederick over at fiercemarriage.com. If you've not checked out fiercemarriage.com, you really need to go over there. They have so much great content and resources available for married couples. Even if you're not married, this is a great website to check out, great resource to check out to prepare yourself for marriage, because they have so much good stuff over there. Just all different topics, devotionals. They have an actual printed devotional you can buy, but they're always writing things, sending things out, and you can get on their email list. So fiercemarriage.com is actually where some of these thoughts are, these applications I'm getting ready to share. So thank you, Ryan and Selena, for letting me use that for from your website, from what you've written. So recently they sent an article out about, or I think it was a Facebook posting that I took this from, about 3 things to say to your spouse on a daily basis. And before I even read these 3 ideas could really easily be applied to your relationship with God as well in many ways. Maybe not specifically, because the context is more for your marriage, but the big ideas behind these statements can be very much applied to your time spent with Jesus. So number 1. And these are great starter ideas for if you're feeling disconnected from your wife, from your husband. These are great things to start saying, to start implementing, even if these are not 3 things you say every day, even throughout the week, that you bring up these benchmarks. It could really encourage your marriage and your relationship with God. So number 1, I love you dearly. I mean, literally, in quotes, I love you dearly. I love you. And they say here, love is deep, love is lasting, and love is active. When you remind your spouse that you love them and you share this common understanding of what that means, it will strengthen and encourage them in a way only you can. I love you. I love everything about you. I love that that you are you. I love you. I love every part of you, and I'm thankful for you. That sort of leads into number 2, but again, this just, this affection and this adoration, overflows and spills over to our relationship with God as well. Say that to your wife. Say that to your husband. Say that to Jesus. Make that a declaration that I love you and I need you. So number one, I love you dearly. Number two, I appreciate you immensely. I appreciate you immensely. Gratefulness has a way of multiplying the joy in your household, and your spouse is one of the greatest gifts to you. Why not tell them explicitly? Let them know you appreciate them for who they are primarily, but also for what they do to contribute to your family and your lives together. So I appreciate you them immensely. This is something that I can struggle with. I'll just be honest with you, I struggle with at times in my marriage. It's just saying thank you and reminding my wife that I appreciate her. There are so many things that Tracy does, my wife does for our home, for our household, for our kids, for me, and big things, little things, all of the above that and sometimes they go unnoticed, and I'm guilty to say that, but I'm just being real that I need to remind myself and challenge myself to thank her, to appreciate her. And I appreciate her, and this statement is just so true. I appreciate you immensely. So let's be grateful, so grateful, and remind our spouse how grateful we are for them, and even in our relationship with God, how grateful we are to Jesus for saving us, for loving us, for calling us sons and daughters of God, for adopting us into His family. It just so good to remember. So I love you dearly. I appreciate you immensely. And then the last one, I thought this was really great how they tied this in. I will fight for you fiercely. Remind your spouse that you're always on their side no matter what you're going through. You may not be perfect, and neither are they, but that won't ever change your decision to love them faithfully and actively. Remind them of that you will always fight for your marriage, that no matter what comes your way, no matter what struggle, you will not give up. I can tell you some of the things that I can only share with you that our marriage went through. It went through hell. It went through complete and utter chaos at the beginning part of our marriage because of my addiction. But at the end of the day, my wife and I chose to fight for our marriage. And because of the rock bottom place that I came to, I decided to fight for my marriage. I wanted my wife more than I wanted porn, and I just more. I didn't want porn at all. I decided I don't need this in my life anymore. I want a healthy marriage. I want to, I want a family. I want kids one day. I want life in my marriage. I don't want death in my life. And so I decided to fight for my marriage fiercely. But that is, even though I'm at a place, I'm 7 years into recovery right now, which I'm thankful for, that fight should never stop. That fight for my wife's heart, that fight for, to be the man that God's called me to be should never, ever stop. And so I want to remind my wife of that. I want that to be a reminder to Tracy. I want that to be a reminder, and even in my quiet time, to the Lord, that I will fight for this relationship fiercely. And nothing that ever comes our way will ever change that. Sometimes I see marriages that just fall apart, and some marriages that needed serious help from the very, very beginning that never got the help they needed, but where the husband, wife, or both just gave up. They just sort of gave up, and there wasn't this fight for their marriage. It just kind of was like, well, I don't love you anymore, or I just feel different. I feel like my I don't want this life anymore. It's just really lame, and it's really sad, and it breaks my heart to see that kind of stuff. So I love you dearly. I appreciate you immensely, and I will fight for you fiercely. Those are great statements to literally make to your spouse, to your Lord, to your God, each and every day, or at least throughout the week, to remind them of that. These statements are important, but the main point is this. They go on to say here, be intentional with your communication. Reinforce the covenant you made to each other daily, and take an ongoing active role in building one another up in Christ. You have the opportunity to be your spouse's greatest encourager. Embrace it. So those are challenging words and convicting words for me. And again, I thank fiercemarriage.com for those thoughts there. I just want to wrap up this week by saying, just kind of sharing a couple thoughts about your relationship with God. So we talked a little bit about discovering the disconnection in your marriage. So as you discover the disconnection, if you ever, I hear this statement said a lot that I don't feel God anymore. I feel dry in my relationship with God. A lot of those things, if we're really honest with ourselves, we kind of imply that it's like God's fault that we don't either feel Him or hear Him, or we feel dry. But all of those things are our choices. Those are choices that we make. It's not God who's the one who is not speaking or not moving or not feeling or not present. He's always present. This dry feeling that we have is not God leaving us or withdrawing Himself from us. It's us withdrawing ourselves from God. And so I know one thing I've tried to do in the last few weeks of my life, last month or so, is just literally from the moment I open my eyes in the morning, as groggy as I feel, as wherever my mind is, from sleep, I try my best for the first 30 seconds, 60 seconds of my day, of just giving thanks, of thanking God for that day, thanking God for His presence, acknowledging how awesome God is. Even if you're just feeling totally out of it, just trying your best to focus your mind, taking the very, very first parts of your day, the first seconds of your day, and giving them to Jesus, dedicating them to the Lord. And then, instead of reaching for your phone, which is probably what we all do, a lot of times let the first thing you do, reach for your phone, check all your notification or whatever, things, messages or whatever. Reach out to Jesus. Let that be your very first connection to Jesus, and then dive into His Word. Go right in, what's the Word saying that day, and making that first initial connection, even if it's for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it is, to jumpstart your day, and to make that connection firm and not continue in disconnection. Matthew 22:37 says this. I thought this would be just appropriate as I was thinking about this word and this message. Love the Lord your God with all, and that's the key word here, all. I have a friend who says all means all, and that's all that all means. All. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love God and love others. It's not love the Lord your God with some of your heart. Love the Lord your God with a little bit of your heart. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, with all of your strength. That is the goal for all of us, isn't it? It's the goal for us to give all and everything to Jesus, to give Him our complete and full attention and focus, and to give our spouses everything and all and our attention. And so that is the ever fulfilling ongoing goal in my life. And again, that's a journey and a process we all are on. But that is the challenge. So it's really important. If you haven't stopped in your life this week or in the last month or so, and just took sort of an inventory of, where do I feel disconnected in my life? Where do I feel that life is kind of devoid, and I'm lacking, or I'm just feeling, just disconnected? It's very easy to happen in marriage. It happens. And if you're feeling it right now, don't, this is not a guilt message. This is not a shame message. Do not put pressure on yourself to feel guilty or shame. Address it. Just address it. Talk about it. talk, honey, why do we feel disconnected right now? Why? That's what my wife did. I shared in the, what you just heard, what you just listened to, that my wife was feeling disconnected, that she was feeling disconnected from me and not encouraged. And it takes intentionality, it takes effort. We've got to be able to do it. We've got to be able to challenge ourselves to lean into our relationships and stay connected. So I hope that is, I hope that's helpful for you. And I hope that and pray for your relationship with Jesus and your relationship with your spouse. It's all for our purity journey and our recovery, to know the other person, to know Jesus, to know our spouse, and to be known by them, because that totally robs the opportunity for isolation and for us to hide feelings, for us to hide attention, for us to hide thoughts. We have to talk, we have to communicate, we have to connect with the people that matter most, with Jesus and with our spouse. And if you're not married, connect with Jesus. Connect with who he is, the heart of God, and so he can prepare you one day to connect with a person, the person that you're going to marry, that you're going to be joined together lifelong, forever. So I thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the Purity for Life podcast this week. You can check out all the content, links and articles and resources at purityforlife.me. There's a lot of great content on there, and hopefully be having some new updated content coming up. But as a dad and as a husband, as a father, it's been a little tough lately to do a weekly podcast. So you may have noticed that this has turned sort of into a bi-weekly. But life happens, right? So we're pumping these out. I'm pumping these out as fast as I can, when I'm able to. But have a great week. Enjoy your week and your weekend, and just connect with Jesus. Connect with your spouse. Love on him. Give him your everything. And look forward to seeing you next week on the Purity for Life podcast. God bless.